GrowCFO is where finance leaders grow together. Join thousands of like-minded professionals using GrowCFO to access the combined knowledge and experience of the finance leader community. You can join us today, growcfo.net. Hello and welcome to the GrowCFO Show. I'm your host, Kevin Appleby, and today I've got one of our XLF facilitators with us, Richard Nero. Richard, welcome to the GrowCFO Show.
Thanks for having me, Kevin.
Richard, tell our audience a little bit about you.
My name is Richard Nero. I'm a Microsoft Excel MVP. I run a finance systems consultancy. We focus on Excel, Power BI. We also do lots of automation with Power Automate, and we do some ERP implementations and getting the best out of tools that people already have.
Brilliant. Microsoft MVP, what does that mean?
It's a phrase coined from American sports. So in the sports world, like in the NBA and the NFL, we have these most valuable players. So the person who's run the most yards in the NFL, dunked the most dunks in the NBA, they get branded the most valuable player. But Microsoft took that phrase and they played on it slightly. So they have the most valuable professional. And so across the different Microsoft ecosystem, various professionals get nominated either by the Microsoft team or by other MVPs because of lots of contributions to the community. So just because you're an MVP doesn't mean you're very good at that tool, although it is quite likely, but it's more about fostering community, sharing to forums, helping people, and not expecting any compensation for it. Lots of Excel YouTubers, Power BI influencers on LinkedIn, those kind of people.
Okay, so what did you do specifically to become an MVP?
Good question. What did I do? I posted a lot on LinkedIn, but I got a little bit addicted to LinkedIn and I was just posting about Excel. At one point, 7 days a week, I was creating content for hours and hours and hours each day. And the thing is, I wasn't selling a course. I'm very passionate about Excel. And so I was just trying to teach people Excel for free. And then it got to a point where I thought, I can only teach them so much for a carousel or a 30-second video. So I started an Excel bootcamp. So I've got nearly 1,000 people on my bootcamp. It's kind of a bit dormant at the moment, but there was a time when on a Saturday morning at 9 a.m., I would have between 60 and 2 people dialing into a Zoom session, and I'd be teaching them Excel for free. So there was the LinkedIn stuff, there was Excel bootcamps, and teaching children in schools. So I initially launched a program to teach kids Excel through carousels. So I was creating all these games. So I thought, how kids learn through play. So I created battleships in Excel. I created a treasure map in Excel where you'd have to guess where the treasure was held based on some clues, the power of deduction. So there was 3 different islands with a monkey on, and it was, the treasure's underneath a monkey island, what is one of 3. But there's also a shark next to it, or only 2 have a shark next to it. And there's a palm tree. Well, only 1 has a palm tree. So by the power of deduction, that kind of thing, right? And so I took that concept into a school in Lewisham, lower socioeconomic place where it's quite a tough area. But the kids, they were loving Excel. Initially, I thought I'd go in and they'd be enthralled by my Excel prowess. There was a lot of spillover from lunchtime. So my lessons were straight after lunch. And so kids coming in who'd fallen out over the lunch break. There was grazed knees. There was people crying in the corner. I remember the first lesson, this boy was misbehaving and the teacher's like, I can't remember his name. Let's call him Jordan. Jordan, sit down. Stop misbehaving. Jordan just left the classroom. Never saw him again. I have no idea what happened. And these are like 9-year-olds, 10-year-olds. And so the one kid that was misbehaving and was crying on the first lesson, on the very last lesson, at the end, he was crying at the back of the lesson. And I was like, oh, what's wrong with you? What upset you? And he was like, is this the last time I get to see you, sir? Is this the last time? Is this the last time I get to do spreadsheets? Is it the last time? And I was like, how sweet is that? He's so sad about not getting to do spreadsheets. He was crying his eyes out. So to answer your question, what did I do? I post a lot on LinkedIn. I created a free Excel bootcamp, and I've been teaching kids how to create graphs, charts, and formulas and spreadsheets. All for free, doing it for the love.
Doing it for the love. But if you're going in and handling a class of 9, 10-year-olds, that is going to give you some great teaching skills. Yeah. Great experience. How to engage people. How to keep them interested. Yeah. So, Richard, that's quite a qualification then to come into teaching finance professionals. So, what do you teach within the XLF program?
The course is called Mastering Excel for Finance, and we cover formulas. So what are the formulas we use in the finance world? So we go through stuff like NPV, payment functions to do financy type stuff. But then we also do some of the more run-of-the-mill formulas like SUMIF, index match, VLOOKUP. But then, so we start off to get the fundamentals right in formulas. Then we also do charting. We do some visualizations. There is a class on pivot table P&Ls, because P&Ls can be a little bit fiddly to get right coming out of a pivot table, because you've got various different aggregation points. So like summing up the COGS, revenue, net profit, etc. And also pivot tables can look a little bit clunky out of the box, but I have a way where for a fair bit of customization, you can get them looking quite slick. And then there's also some automation. So we talk about Power Automate, VBA, and how we can use AI to write code, and also the AI aspects that are baked within Excel, because we talk about AI since the dawn of ChatGPT, but AI has been in Excel for quite a while. So there's things like column by example in Power Query. We have this thing called Analyze Data, where you can click on a table and you can ask questions. So what are the top 5 sales persons by quantity sold? And so bit of the AI, and also Power Query, because Power Query is the most powerful part of Excel. And it's one of those parts that not a lot of people know about. I sent a survey out to some of the greatest Excel minds in the world. So people like Ken Pulse, Mark Proctor, Matt Bratton. I asked them lots of questions. And one of those questions was, what is the single most powerful feature within inside Excel? And I think 90% of people said Power Query. But Power Query is also the thing that 90% of people don't know about. So I make sure to cover Power Query in this course to teach people how to connect to data sets. So when I hear people talking about copy pasting data, you should never really need to copy paste data. You either connect to files, you connect to folders, you connect to databases, you can connect to your ERP, where it's SAP, Sage, Oracle, and you just do your analysis once, set it and forget it. And then when it's time to refresh, turn the handle and that data pulls through. So in a long, convoluted way, that is what we cover.
Yeah, and in a past life, I was a financial modeler, quite a power user of Excel, but I don't think I would know where to start with Power Query. I don't think it had been invented the last time I built a big financial model in Excel.
2013, I think it was, 2014.
As long as that, yeah. Because my go-to would normally be pull in a big CSV file full of data and then work on that. And probably have loads of pivot tables knocking about based on the data I've pulled in. Yeah. So thinking about that then, Richard, sort of existing experience of Excel would you expect somebody to have coming into your course? Who's it aimed at?
Well, it's finance folk generally know their way around an Excel spreadsheet, right? So if they're 1 or 2 years post-qualification, they've probably done a VLOOKUP. They're probably able to create a pivot table. But a lot of these people don't know the little shortcuts to do things. They don't know the best practice. Often people don't understand how to get those dollar signs and those formulas, so when they drag them down, everything works okay. So they don't need to be experts in Excel, just some basic understanding of Excel, and then I will take them on that journey to improve.
This is the course that sits before you perhaps go along and do some of the best practice financial modeling courses.
I would think so, yeah. So I don't do the financial modeling course. Actually, Dan asked me to do the financial modeling course, and I agreed. And then I had not imposter syndrome, but I'm on a group chat of all the other Excel MVPs, right? And so I'm on first name terms with some of the greatest financial modelers in the world. So for me to think I can stand up in front of a group of 10 accountants and teach financial modeling, I probably could. But in compared to the people like Tim Heng, Liam Bastick, and Daniel Stein-Fairhurst, they're incredible. They're like another level. So I put the opportunity on my little MVP group chat, And Danielle stepped in and now she holds the reins on that. And who better, right? Danielle is one of the greatest financial. I remember when I first came to LinkedIn many years ago when I was using like Mr. Excel forums, and I would use LinkedIn was a place where I'd banter with people intellectually on Excel. It was a very different place back then. You could ask a question like, I'm stuck on this VBA macro, and you get some help. Nowadays, it's just people spamming lots of AI generated content. But yeah, we now have Danielle doing the financial modeling.
AI has probably ruined LinkedIn from
Yeah,
those days as well.
the AI comments are hilarious.
Yeah. So, Richard, you're teaching basic Excel to people, but how did you learn it yourself?
My Excel origin story. So I first started learning Excel when I was 8 years old. It was a weekend evening and my mum was making charts for a maths lesson. So she was an A-level maths teacher. And I was looking over her shoulder and I was like, wow, how is she putting numbers and it's creating graphics? So just to give context, this is before the PlayStation, before the Nintendo 64, before SNES Master System, before the Game Boy, before any of that.
You're not that old, surely.
I'm 40,
You're not that old, surely.
I'm 41. So this is before all those consoles. So to be able to create graphics through typing in numbers was mind blowing. And so my mum stopped what she was doing. It was late, fairly late on an evening, and she stopped what she was doing, sat me on her lap, and was like, "Okay, this is how I create graphs and charts." And so from a young age, I would play in Excel. I would just do lots of formatting, just do like lots of numbers and sums. And shortly after learning how to create charts, I created a chart of everybody in my class. So looks, personality, IQ, each person in my class had a bar chart, and I cut them out, put titles, named the axis. It's very impressive charting abilities. And I took them into school, like primary school kid top trumps. And it was all fun and games until some of the girls, personality 6, Richard, that's not very nice. Looking back on it, it's probably the wrong thing to do because we probably shouldn't rank people by looks, personality, and IQ. But I was 8 or 9, so I guess I can be forgiven.
But there's a flip side of that, Richard.
What's the flip side?
The top trumps idea is that there will be something on every card that wins.
Yes, good point.
I think the lesson from something like that says that everybody's got a superpower.
There you go.
Yeah. So you mastered Excel at a very early age. What about your work career? What happened there? How did you get to this position you're in now, running a consultancy? There must be a backstory behind that.
I went up the finance ranks the slow way. So like, I did admin roles, AP, AR. I wasn't one of these lucky people who got onto a grad scheme because I'd be frustrated with manual processes. I was always trying to use Excel to automate my work. So I remember one of my early roles when I was a teenager, like 19 or something similar. I had a role where I had to get this Excel spreadsheet, and then it was with the credit control department, and I had to get this data set and I had to carve it up into the different credit controller groups. So someone will be chasing banking debt and someone will be chasing construction firm debt. And I'd have to cut it up, and it was take me about 45 minutes to churn through and do this. And I remember receiving this manual. Okay, you got insert a column here, do this. And I was like, there's got to be a better way. Googled it, VBA. And apparently I could record a macro and then hit play. And so I was given this task, age 19, on close to minimum wage. And I'm writing scripts to automate stuff. And I remember actually my very first finance job, I was working in AP and I overheard the CFO with the CEO, they're talking about creating graphs, but no one knows how to go. Oh, I do. I think I was about 18 years old. Yeah, I can create charts. I've been creating since I was 8 years old. And so I created that. Richard, how do you know all this stuff about it? Like, I'm the basic AP guy that's literally on minimum wage. And I'm showing the CFO, who's ex-PwC, how to create graph and charts. And so did I get a pay rise? No, I actually,
Typical.
I actually got sacked from that job. I won't go into detail why. And yeah, so I slowly went up the ladder. A really crucial role in my development was a role where I had to code VBA in the job interview. So this guy, a really nice guy, so I need you to write some code to do this. I can't remember what the task was, but I didn't know off the top of my head. I knew I'd have to use the VBA recorder. I was like, can I use the recorder? He's like, yeah, sure. So I used the recorder and then edited it and I got the job. And going into that job, it was the first job I ever had where there was somebody better than me at Excel, which was a great experience because I'd come in on a Monday and he'd be like, Richard, I've created this VBA macro to do this and that. Can you have a look? Look over his shoulder. Oh, wow. How did you do that? And I actually got sacked from that job.
The merging here.
I got stitched up. This lady stitched me up. So I put together this big analysis in Excel and there was all these hash errors. And I said to her, I was like, this doesn't look right. She goes, oh no, it's fine. It always happens like that. She didn't like, this girl did not like me. This lady didn't. Oh no, hand it into the boardroom. It'll be fine. Where to the board? Hi guys. And 10 minutes later, everybody comes out the boardroom. Richard, this is wrong. Anyway, yeah, she didn't really like me. And I think the final straw was I was asked to get the CEO to sign off all these stat accounts. There was like 9 dormant entities or something like that. And he had to sign them all. At the end of the day, I got them all signed. It was difficult to get his time. And I said to the lady, where should I put these? Oh, put them on my desk. Put them squarely on her desk. Next morning, I come in and CFO, which are both those docs, on her desk. No, Richard, you didn't put them on my desk. You took them. What did you do with them? She stitched me up. And so then I had to go back to the CEO and say, those documents have been lost. Can you sign them again? And probation period was not what? I didn't pass the probation. But I lost that job. And then the next job, I was working for law firms and investment banks. And that took me to another level. So as one door shut, another one opened. And so I was working for law firm, this project. We were doing a procurement project for a law firm and investment bank. And so we'd have to procure IT systems. So I was going into like procurement discussions with Vodafone, O2, big IT providers, working with investment banks in New York. Probably one of my favorite jobs in my career. I got a call about the Royal Mail IPO and the Royal Mail IPO. Oh my, the spreadsheet that carried the IPO was one of my spreadsheets. I didn't create it, but it was my baby. And the numbers were huge. Billions cost based, hundreds of thousands of employees. I remember I was working on this budget and I was like, boss, it doesn't add up properly. It's just round to the nearest 100 million if you need to. And I was like, okay. It was great. The numbers are good, or the numbers are big even. And in that role, I was in a team of maybe 10 or 12. And everybody was good at Excel. Everybody was really good. And there was a guy who sat next to me, my boss, Matt Brooks. He was good at Excel, but he made things look beautiful. And I'd never really looked at presenting data in such a way. So I would just create a graph or a table and submit it, but he would make everything look beautiful. And that's when I studied graph design and started to look at, like, it's quite geeky, quite sad, but I would see a graph in The Economist and I'd try to recreate it myself in Excel. And yeah, slowly went through the ranks. Then I went contracting. I did a stint at Marks and Spencer, worked for Capita, like some big FTSE 100s. And then it got to a point when I wanted to help more people. And so the first project where I was using external resource was when I was looking for an investment fund. And so they were asking me to do all this stuff that, yes, I could do, but I wasn't a developer. So at that point, I started to pull in offshore resource. So I've got a few guys in India. I've got a team in Lebanon and a really, really good SQL developer in Serbia. So I can go into conversations about various different tech tools, various different problems, and I can talk about the solutions, but then get world-class developers to actually do them. Because I can code SQL, I can code Python, I can code VBA, I can do Power Automate, but am I a developer in any of those things?
Yeah.
Probably not. I know the tools in the box and I know what's feasible, but then I pull in people who are very good at those things.
And I think that's an interesting set of skills these days, with one of the new things emerging in Excel being Python for Excel.
Yes.
No, you can get AI to write the code for you, to be that developer. But I think unless you've got an overview of what Python does and how it does it, then you'd potentially create something very dangerous.
Yeah. Yeah. I post on LinkedIn a lot about ChatGPT and AI and how it can code VBA for you. But I always recommend you still need to learn VBA, because you'll always get to a point where it can only take you so far. And at some point you have to roll your sleeves up and actually code it yourself. And Whenever I talk about AI and coding, I always give an example of a project one of my developers was working on. So he was working on a PHP, it was a web email project, not one of my projects. And he was getting some code and it was looking at an email inbox. And he got this code from ChatGPT and he read the first 10 lines. It may have been 100 or so lines. He looked at the first, that looks about right. Ran the code, deleted his whole inbox. And so the very last line of code said truncate inbox. So why it did everything perfectly that it was supposed to do, but then it deleted his whole inbox at the end of it. Luckily, his inbox was backed up, but it just goes to show you really have to read the code. You have to understand the code before you just hit run.
Now, Richard, you're making this sound all as though you left school, got a job on minimum wage, but I'm not looking at a LinkedIn profile, and there's a little side of you that you haven't talked about. I'm looking at the education section on your LinkedIn program.
What section?
The education section in LinkedIn. And I'm seeing BSc in computer science from Kingston University. I'm seeing a CIMA qualification, so you're a qualified accountant. I'm seeing an Open University degree in economics and mathematical sciences. And I'm seeing an executive master's for business administration as well as your most recent qualification.
Yep, MBA.
So, Richard, now come on, telling our audience that you left school, got a job on minimum wage and just learned all this stuff. Come on.
Yeah, so I enjoy learning. I really enjoy learning. And it's kind of been hammered in from my parents, my mum, maths teacher. She studied mathematics at university. My father, he left school at age 14. And because he left school so young, he's hammered into me how important school is and how important education is. He's Windrush generation. So from my parents, there's a very high focus on academic achievement. But in terms of my journey, when I left school, I did go straight into work. I didn't go straight into uni, but I realized I wanted to go to university later on in life. And I really liked computers. And I didn't realize I was good with computers until I was going around to my friends' houses and they all had viruses and their computers were really slow. And I'd be like, okay, give me 10 minutes, defrag the hard drive, use C cleaner. And they'd be like, oh, wow, my computer's running fresh now. I was like, yeah, didn't you know you could just do all that stuff and go to task manager, get the processes that are looking dodgy, change your startup routine. And I was like, oh, maybe I should study this. And so I studied computer science. That was so much fun. Really enjoyed that. I covered database design, Prince2. There was even some Excel. I learned how to do a VLOOKUP at university. I was coding VBA and doing automation before I'd even learned how to do a VLOOKUP, which is not the normal cycle of things. So yeah, I did my computer science. And then I was in a job that I was found ridiculously easy. It was very basic accounts receivable role. And so I was qualifying as an accountant and that wasn't too hard, dare I say. While I was doing the accountancy, I started studying economics and mathematics through the Open University, which was fun. Finished that. And then I've done loads of little courses. Like I've studied photography. I did a Harvard course. I say Harvard X through edX. So I remember when I got accepted onto the program, I posted on Facebook, like, I'm going to Harvard, guys. I'm finally done it. But it was like a $99 course.
The clickbait.
Pardon?
The clickbait.
Yeah. I was like, going to Harvard, guys. Mom's going to be proud. But yeah, anybody can click the link. But that Python course was the toughest of any online learning. God, that was difficult. Yeah. But got through it. I studied SQL first through W3 schools, and then I studied SQL through Code Academy. I got really good at that. And then I had a role at Brompton where they gave me keys to the database. They were like, here you go. There's a database. Do whatever you want. Whereas a lot of places, it's find it very difficult when you sit in finance and you're trying to get access to the IT resources. They just don't want you to have it. Whereas Brompton, I was given free reign. So I taught myself Python in lockdown 1. Lockdown 2, I was teaching Python to kids on Zoom. And then I got a job and I was coding APIs in Python. So I went from learning it, teaching it, delivering it in a corporate environment. And then I did my MBA because I felt like I needed a bit more a holistic business understanding. But to be honest, that MBA, a lot of the stuff we cover in CIMA anyway. So a lot of the stuff like Maslow hierarchy of needs and A lot of the IT stuff and performance management, we would already study it as accountants. But one of the best things about the MBA program is the network. So now I have a huge network of very intelligent people. In fact, I organize networking dinners. So tonight I'm going for a networking dinner with AI thought leaders, CTOs, CIOs, startup mentors. Everyone in that MBA program is very driven. They'll have this big corporate job and then they've got an ad tech business on the side, or they've got a femtech. They've all got a startup on the side. So it just elevates and makes you realize that there are people out there doing some incredible things, and it's inspirational. It is inspirational.
Absolutely. And Richard, you have been an inspirational guest.
Oh, thanks. That's me to say. Thanks, Kevin.
We've had some real fun in this conversation.
Yeah, I've enjoyed it.
That meeting up with you in the classroom is going to be fun as well. So, folks, if you want to brush up your Excel skills, then come along and sign up for Richard's course. Give me the name of that course again, Richard.
Good question. The course is called Mastering Excel for Finance.
Brilliant. Richard Nero, thank you for being this week's guest on the GrowCFO Show.
Thank you for having me, Kevin. Thank you for having me.